say the short. We'll start with the short refuge prayer. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodam Soki Chokam La Zhang Chu Bardo Dagni Kyao Su Chi Dagi Jin Soki Pe Sonam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Drupar Shok Sangye Chodam Soki Chognam La Changchu Bardu Dagni Kya Su Chi Dagi Jinso Gi Pe Sonam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Drupar Shok. The four immeasurables. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness in the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadanya pe semchen tamche dewa dang dewe gyudang dimpar gyur che. Dugnyal dang dugnyal ki gyudang drawar gyur che. Dugnyal me pe dewa dang midra war gyur che. Ne ring chang tang ni dral jong wei tam yong lad ne par gyur che. Manang kadanya pe sim chen tam che. Dewa dang dewe gyudang din par gyur che. Dugnyal dang dugnyal gi gyudang dral war gyur che. Dugnyal me pe dewa dang midra war gyur che. Ne ring chang dang ni dang dral wei tam yong lad ne par gyur che. Now we will turn to page 14, you say? Request for the teachings.
Yes, thank you.
Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the two vehicles and their combination according to the disposition, and likewise the mental capacities of sentient beings. I don't know the tune
No,
for
I'm
this.
sorry. I meant page 14 in the Bardo Thodol text.
Oh, page 14 in the Bardo Thodol. Okay, 14 in the Bardo Thodol. Okay. Just page 14. Let's see.
14, 15, and 16.
Okay. Om Ahum Bodhicitta Ma Sukha Jnana Dhatu Am O Rulu Rulu Hum Byo Hum. Om Ahum Bodhicitta Ma Sukha Jnana Dhatu Am Om Rulu Rulu Hum Byo Hum. Om Ahum Bodhicitta Ma Sukha Jnana Dhatu Am Om Rulu Rulu Hum Byo Hum. From the field of reality that expands uncreated and pure within a celestial palace, which is a seminal point of light, pure, unceasing, and radiant, through the natural expressive power of one's own mind, uncontrived and empty. Intrinsic awareness, radiant in emptiness, arises in the form of Vajrasattva, seated upon a bejeweled throne adorned with a lotus, sun, and moon cushions. The right hand holds a Vajra at the heart, symbolizing the union of awareness of absolute wisdom and emptiness. The left hand supports a bell resting on the hip, symbolizing the union of wisdom, appearance, and emptiness. And the head is adorned with the garland of perfect Buddhas, representing the five enlightened families of the thus gone to bliss. Thus, Vajrasattva manifests in the form of Buddha body of perfect resource. Exquisitely adorned with silks and jewels, seated in the posture of royal ease, with the right leg extended and the left drawn in, radiating at the heart the seed syllable Hum, surrounded by the 100-syllable mantra. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Patishtha Drita Me Baba Sutakaya Me Baba Supakaya Me Baba Anurakta Me Baba Sarva Siddhi Me Prayapsa Sarva Karma Sutsa Me Sutsa Shriyam Kuru Hom Ahaho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Vajri Mame Munsa Vajri Baba Mahasamaya Sato Ah Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Tishtadrita Me Baba Sutokaya Me Baba Supokaya Me Baba Anurakta Me Baba Sarvasvi Memprayasa Sarva Karma Sutsame Sitsam Shriyam Kuru Hom Ahaho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Vajri Mame Mutsa Vajri Baba Mahasamaya Sato Ah Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Patishtadrita Me Baba Sutokaya Me Baba Supokaya Me Baba Anurakta Me Baba Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sarva Karma Sutsa Me Sisam Shriyam Kuru Hom Ahaho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajri Mame Mutsa Vajri Baba Mahasamaya Sattva Ah.
Very good. Thank you, Bernie.
Okay.
So, when we made the announcement that we were going to do this discussion, this study on Bardo Thodol, we said that we would end it in the end of December, December 29th. So what that means is that we have tonight, next week, and the following week to introduce the Bardo Thodol. So I think it's convenient that we can do that, and then perhaps in January and February we can go in and go more in depth with the actual practice of the Bardo Thodol. But now we're at the point of part three. We've already talked about part one, which was the death, going through the death process and going into the Bardo of reality with the peaceful deities. We talked about that. We've talked about part two, which was the wrathful deities being in the Bardo Thodol, being in the Bardo of reality, and encountering the wrathful deities. So we've talked about this through the main practice, different characteristics and so on of these deities, um, how they apply in the actual recitation of the Bardo Thodol for someone who has passed is something that I'd like to explore again in January and February with everybody. But now we've come to part three, and part three is the rebirth, the Bardo of becoming, and this I think is quite abstract, and there's three parts to this part three. So we can do one part tonight, we can do one part next week, and we do the third part on the 29th of December and be able to complete, what we set out to do. So does anybody have any comments or questions that you'd like to bring up about what we've already looked at, what the Bardo of reality, the Bardo of death, anything like that, anything about the peaceful deities or the wrathful deities? Okay, then. So if you do have comments or questions, you can always speak right up and that'll be fine. But we're going to concentrate on this. So if you're looking at the table of contents, so we're on the second page of the table of contents, and we see that part three is the elucidation of the intermediate state of rebirth. And then within that is the elucidation itself, then is the obstruction of the womb entrance, and then the third one is choosing a womb entrance. So this is part of the Bardo of becoming. So the thing that I'd like you to keep an open mind about is this is very abstract. And so we talk about a mental body. It's expressed in the Bardo Thodol repeatedly about a mental body that is moving through these realms at this point through the Bardo of reality and into the Bardo of becoming, this mental body. So keep in mind what the mental body means or what it means to you. And so to me, what it means is there's a spiritual body. And I think that, sometimes it seems that the mental body in this case is that spiritual body, but it's a spiritual body that also has the intelligent level of being able to analyze it, of being able to look at it, and so on. So, as I say, it's abstract. But keep in mind what the mental body is. Is it a spiritual body? Is it a spiritual body that has come into union with the intellectual body? So, the second thing to keep in mind is that there is a top down experience that we've talked about, that someone has passed, has ejected their consciousness, and now that the consciousness is going through the bardo of death, going through the bardo of reality as a mental body, and and then is on its way, if it can't remain in the bardo of reality, to become Buddha, to maintain that Buddha nature, it then sinks, if you will, into the bardo of becoming, into being reborn into a body. So keep that in mind. But also, as Carl Jung has suggested and others have suggested, that from the bottom up, if we're approaching this from our intellectual perspective of being in the bardo of living now, that we're approaching this center, we're approaching this bardo of reality from the bottom up, from being a human being and coming into this intellectually and having this intellectual experience with this. So look at this whole process of the Bardo Thodol, not as much as for reciting this for someone who has passed and guiding them through these bardos, through these 49 days, but that you are guiding yourself, that this becomes a meditational guide that you can apply to all the different practices that you might do as a Tibetan Buddhist. Um, Through the Vajrayana, through the Tantrayana, through the Mantrayana, through this the body of wisdom, the vehicle, the body of wisdom is this body that is the Tantrayana, the Vajrayana. So we're experiencing, so we can open our minds up to this and so on. So keeping our mind open to those two things, the top down and the bottom up, and be able to look at this in that way. So, with your open mind, maybe you will have a perspective on this, because this is something that we should discuss and share, that we all are capable of having our own experience with this, because we're bringing our own background with this. So, in other words, how concrete is all of this? You know, so that's you know, you can give an opinion on that. You can discuss that. However, I suggest that you have some experience with it, and meditate on it and so on like that, to be able to have some abstracts or some point of view into the abstract of what this is. So, abstract is something that is not concrete. So this is very, how would we say, subjective, or it's beyond subjective and beyond objective. It's experiential and so on. So without the experience of being able to transcend our ordinary intellectual mind, then it's just all pure conjecture and so on our part to do that. But if we have the experience of being in the bardo, of recognizing ourselves in the bardo, having gone through and recognizing the symbology of the deities that we've been discussing and so on, would all be valid and important. So I hope that means something to you, and we'll continue now to go to page 150 in the Bardo Thodol. So what I'd like to do is to pretty much read this myself because I can read it and pause and explain certain parts. If you have questions, don't hesitate to interrupt me. But I think it's important to get the context of this on the table, so to speak. So to go through this whole initial part here, the elucidation of the immediate state, which is about 20 pages. So to go through and get that out now in its entirety and then come back and discuss it, I think is a good way to proceed. So, so I appreciate your patience in this and being here to be part of this and to listen to this and so on, and understand that I'm not trying to shut anybody out from reading this because I've always encouraged people to read. But I think in this case we want to encapsulate, each of these sections so we can talk about it better. So this is called the Sidpa Bardo, the elucidation of the state of rebirth. O child of Buddha nature, Ricky Boo, and I'll use my name. O child of Buddha nature, Ricky Boo, Kunchok Dorje Pema Dorje. Listen carefully and understand. Hell beings, gods, and those with the body of the intermediate state are born in a supernormal manner. Formerly, when the visions of the peaceful and wrathful, the fierce deities, arose before you, during the intermediate state of reality, you did not recognize them. Then, overwhelmed by terror, you will have fainted. 4.5 days or some time later, upon awakening from this faint, your consciousness has again become clear, and a body resembling your former one has arisen. This body is described in the Tantras. Having the bodily form of one's past and emergent existences, complete with all sense faculties and the power of unobstructed movement, endowed with the miraculous abilities derived from past actions, visible to those similar in kind, and through pure clairvoyance. So now, next page, here, past and emergent means that your present body, which is a product of your past habitual tendencies, will resemble a body of flesh and blood. But like a body of the auspicious eon, the Vajrakalpa, it will also be radiant and possess certain of the major and minor marks. Since this state is an apparitional experience of the mental body, it is called the mental body of apparitional experience in the intermediate state. At this time, if you are to be born as a god, you will come to experience the apparitional field of the realms of the gods. Depending on whichever of the realms you are able to take birth in, whether that of the anti-gods, humans, animals, anguished spirits, or hell beings, you will come to experience its particular apparitional field. Therefore, past means that for some time, 3.5 days, you will possess the bodily form which is a product of your past habitual tendencies and existences. And emergent means that after 3.5 days or some time, the apparitional field of the next realms into which you are to be born will emerge. Hence the expressions past and present existences. Whatever apparitional fields emerge at this time, do not be drawn by them. Do not become attached to them. Do not cling to them. If you cling to them and become attached, you will continue to roam amongst the 6 classes of beings and be turning towards suffering. Although until yesterday or recently, the intermediate state of reality arose within you, you did not recognize it. As a result, you have been compelled to wander here. Now, just as it was formerly introduced to you by your spiritual teacher, if you are able to cultivate undistractedly a recognition of the essential nature of reality, if you can rest and abide without grasping and without activity directly in the unwavering, naked awareness, which is radiance and emptiness conjoined, you can attain liberation and avoid wandering yet further towards the womb entrances. If you are not able to achieve this recognition, then visualize your spiritual teacher as being seated on the crown of your head and be intensely and fervently devoted. This is most important. Again and again, do not be distracted. So, this whole section that I just recited, we would repeat 2 more times for the benefit of someone that has passed and we are guiding them through the bardo of becoming. For ourselves, being on the cushion and studying this from the bottom up, we would recite this many times and think about this many times over many different sessions of sitting and contemplating what all this means. There's a lot of things in here. So generally, the past and present, past and emergent is our ego identity, our ego in the past and our ego in the future. If you didn't recognize the reality of freedom in the present, if you didn't recognize that, then now you wander in the possibility of no ego or yes ego. In other words, you become dualistic again. You're becoming dualistic. This is another, meaning of the mental body, that is a dualistic body. We haven't been able to sustain the freedom of the Buddha nature, of what we call Buddha nature, the awakened one. We've been pulled away, much as our mind is always pulling us away today in the bardo of living. We're constantly being distracted and so on. So we may have moments where we have one-pointed mindfulness, but then something comes up, something pulls us away from that one-pointed mindfulness, and we have to work to get back to that. In the bardo of reality, as a peaceful deity, we will not be distracted. We would be firmly, completely, positively stable in that state of mind of the non-conceptual, of the absolute, of the ultimate, all the names that we call that and so on. So without that, we're in that dualistic nature. So it's a no ego or it's a yes ego. The no ego would be that part where we are, resolute in the absolute. The yes ego would be when we're dualistic and so on. If anybody has any comments, please speak up. So now I'm going to go to page 153, the next page. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, listen carefully yet again. The phrase complete with all sense faculties and the power of unobstructed movement means that even though you may have been blind, deaf, or lame while you were alive, now in the intermediate state, your eyes can see forms, your ears hear sounds, and all your sense faculties clear and complete. Hence, the Tantra says, complete with all sense faculties. Recognize this sensual clarity, for it is a sign that you have died and are wandering in the intermediate state. Remember this oral instruction. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje. Unobstructed means that the body with which you now have is a mental body. Your awareness is now separated from its physical support. Therefore, this is not a body of solid form. Accordingly, you now have the ability to move unobstructedly, penetrating to the core of all forms. You can pass through Mount Sumeru and through dwellings, the earth, stones, boulders, and mountains. Indeed, other than your mother's womb and the indestructible seat, you can pass back and forth even through Mount Sumeru itself. So, this mental body here, we can imagine through our intelligence what it's like to pass through a boulder, what it's like to pass through space, what it's like to pass through the earth. We can imagine that. As a spirit, it's completely possible to do all those things. It's in a it's in a it's in a realm that as human beings we can only experience, but we can't say, yes, I've had that kind of an experience. We can imagine it, but to actually be able to do that, so here in this spiritual realm, which is indestructible, which is birthless, which is deathless, which is unimpeded, which is empty of any nature, which is perfectly clear, then all these things are possible. So now it says, remember, and to the next page, 154, the advice of your spiritual teacher. For this ability is a sign that you are wandering in the intermediate state of rebirth. Recognize this and pray to the meditational deity Mahakarunika. So just to remind everybody, Mahakarunika is the great compassionate one, who is Avalokiteshvara Shenreze. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje. The phrase endowed with miraculous abilities derived from past actions does not mean that you necessarily possess any enlightened attributes or any miraculous ability and meditative stability, but that you have a miraculous ability which results from your past actions and accords with your past actions. Consequently, you will have the ability to circumambulate Mount Sumeru and the four continents in an instant. Merely in the time it takes to withdraw or hold out an arm, you can travel instantly anywhere you wish just by thinking of your desired destination. Do not be fascinated by these diverse and haphazard miraculous abilities. Do not indulge in them. Of all the things which you have the ability to recall, there is not one which you cannot make manifest. You have ability now to manifest any aspect of your past unimpededly. Therefore, recognize this and pray to your spiritual teacher. So, as I said, as an intellectual mental body, we can imagine these things. But in the spiritual body sense, we can do these things without any mental thought about it. And it's not an imagination, it is a doing. It is something that can be accomplished and so on. And so this is a miraculous thing, and one of the ways in which we're born, an egg birth, a womb birth, a heat and moisture birth, or a miraculous birth. So this miraculous birth is referring to this. We may have been given, a very short explanation of the miraculous birth of when a god in the god realm dies, that they miraculously go to the lower realms, and in particular the hell realms. Well, that's something that we're taught to learn as we're experiencing the six human realms and so on. So that's quite a while ago we talked about things like that. But now this miraculous birth means quite a bit more. It can mean being born on a lotus pedestal and being born again as a Buddha, as Padmasambhava, who's referred to as the lotus born. But there's many, many beings like that. And any enlightened being who is born to be enlightened or is close to being enlightened can be thought of as being born in this way and so on. So here is a practical way in which we can see that this is taking place. So a point here is when your absorption wanders, when we're absorbed into one-pointed mindfulness, but when that wanders, you recall your meditational hero, whoever that is, you know. So it's saying here, if you don't have one, use Mahakarunika, use Shenrezig, Avalokiteshvara, you know. But if Ascobia is yours, or Medicine Buddha is yours, or Green Tara, or whatever, you know, if you have that meditational hero, that meditational guide, your miraculous ability may be a combination of virtue and non-virtue, that they are helping stabilize you through those changes, those vicissitudes of that dualistic nature, because that dualistic nature keeps creeping in when we lose our absorption. We're losing it to our dualistic nature. So the meditational deity is helping us, you know, put our wheels back on the track, so to speak. So you can think of virtuous places or non-virtuous places when you're in that mindset. So do not indulge in your meditation in either of those virtuous or non-virtue. Virtue and non-virtue itself should become as a non-thought, as non-conceptual. So we do not want to indulge in meditation in either. We want to maintain space. You know, so part of all of this is to develop the meditation, which is a space mind, which is an open mind, a free mind that is not attached to thought. Thought things may be happening, but we're not attached to them. We're not paying attention to them. You know, we see them, recognize them, but um, we are maintaining space. We are maintaining the meditation. So this is another way of saying what I just read here. So now we come to page 155 again. Um, it says, O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje. As for the phase as for the phrase, visible to those similar in kind and through pure clairvoyance, the words similar in kind mean that in the intermediate state, those of a similar kind of birth will come to perceive one another. Thus, in the case of those similar in kind, who are to be born as gods, the gods to be perceive one another. Similarly, those who are similar in kind to any of the six classes of beings will come to perceive one another. Do not become attached at the sight of these beings. Meditate on the meditational deity, Mahakarunika. The words visible through clairvoyance do not refer to the clairvoyance which results from the meritorious qualities of the gods, and so forth, but they do refer to the pure clairvoyance which those of genuine meditative concentration perceive. However, this is not a clairvoyance that can perceive the beings of the intermediate state at all times. If you are intent on seeing beings of like nature in the intermediate state, then they become perceived. If you are not so intent, they will not be perceived. This clairvoyance will dissolve as soon as your concentration is distracted. So this question of clairvoyance, this point of clairvoyance, and maybe, you know, in your meditative practices at one time or another during retreats or during times when you were by yourself but doing concentrated practice and you had moments of meditation, maybe clairvoyance rose up. Maybe, you know, you could sense things, you could expect things, or maybe there was no expectation, but you had a thought and then quietly soon after the phone rings and it's who you were thinking about or something like that, you know, and we begin to recognize other beings who are in this thing, you know, in this clairvoyant state and so on. Those who are become like our spiritual family, if you will, our spiritual friends. So this is a subtle, very subtle state of mind, no doubt. And but everybody is a spiritual being, whether they admit it or not. We all have our spiritual body. You know, we are trying to develop a greater recognition of that spiritual body. So we have a maybe a heightened sense of clairvoyance and awareness of clairvoyance, but many people, most people are suppressing that spirituality and they have none. Or if they have it, they and something happens, they say, wow, you know, that was pretty cool, you know, that was pretty magical. You know, I wonder how that happened or something like that. There was deja vu. You know, they might have all kinds of rationales for it. Maybe we have had for our clairvoyance, but this is part of the nature of awakening to our spirituality, of dealing with our spirituality, this clairvoyance. If we're in one point in mindfulness, this clairvoyance is part of that one pointed mindfulness because we are saturated, if you will, in that ultimate. Maybe saturated might be a wrong word. It implies being something, but we know that non-conceptual is to not give it any characteristics. But the point is that when that quietude, for lack of a better word, is disrupted, the clairvoyance may go away. However, if we have been in our meditation practices over and over again, there's a degree of post meditation that we have brought with us now that we can't turn off anymore. We've had experience, and once you have the experience, it's now part of your life. So things will still happen. They're going to be very subtle. They may not be very, very recognizable on the surface. But the more that we have these experiences, and the more that we be able to relate to our past meditations and experiences in that way, we begin to connect the dots. We begin to see the intersection of these things that are happening. We're becoming less dualistic and more, you know, non-dual, and seeing that all this is happening spontaneously and simultaneously. So that so post meditation is my point in saying that we we keep these things with us. So this process of being on the cushion of from the bottom up, you know, we're having this kind of rebirth experience. We've used the analogy that we are a different person after our meditation. We come into the meditation with a certain mindset, with certain experiences. We sit on the cushion and we have some kind of a transcendent experience. And now we're forever changed. And we come out of that one pointed mindfulness of that experience and we carry that with us. In the beginning, we may completely suppress it, we may completely forget about it. But the more that we do this, the more adept we become in meditation, the stronger the post meditation becomes. So maybe you've had that kind of an experience. So now the middle of page 156, it says, O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje. With a body having qualities such as these just described, you will once again see your homeland and your relatives as if in a dream. Yet even though you call out to your relatives, they will not reply. You will see your family and relatives crying and realize, I am dead. What should I do now? Thinking this, you will be overwhelmed by intense suffering. You will feel like a fish expelled from water, riding on hot sand. Although you will suffer on realizing you are dead, this is not helpful to you now. If you have a spiritual teacher, pray to your spiritual teacher. Pray to the meditational deity, Mahakarunika. Although you will feel attached to your relatives, this is not helpful to you now. Do not be attached. Pray to Mahakarunika and be free of suffering, awe, and fear. So we begin to choose spiritual friends, you know, in our bardo of living, in our post-meditative state, we're making choices, we're changing. We're allowing our whole lifestyle to change because of the experiences that we've had in retreat, in meditation, contemplation, etc. So we're choosing spiritual friends. Upon meditation and its primary results, we experience not being understood or not recognized. So the people that we were friends with before, you know, they're not on the same wavelength as we are now. And so these new spiritual friends, our Sangha members and so on, become our guides, become the people that we're bouncing off of in terms of conversation, of being with, sharing energy and so on, whether it's in the meditation center or it's in groups like this having discussions, or it's reading books and seeing that the author of the book who's quoting other people, we're seeing ourselves as other things, we're seeing ourselves as other beings. We're beginning to recognize what are the the deity yoga. We're beginning to see ourselves as these deities, these personification of energy. So we can get sad, coming back to the text here, we can get sad in this mindset of seeing our family, of this mental body being pulled away from the meditative state and thinking about the past, and we can become sad about this. So the point here is to keep the meditational deity in our mind. And that's why developing a strong sense, a strong affinity, a strong union with the meditational deity now in our waking state, in our meditative state, and so on, is important, because when we go into this rarefied, spiritual state that is being pulled away by this mental state, then it becomes, we become conditioned, we become stronger in the meditative state, in the spiritual sense. So the meditational hero becomes positive. If we're doing practice now, do we take that practice with us for the rest of the day? Or does it last for 5 minutes till we exit, our living space, get in our car and drive off, and is it gone? Or can we maintain that for the rest of the day, for the next day and the day after that? And if we're practicing every day, are we supporting? Are we making that stronger, keeping that connection stronger? Do we have a daily practice that keeps that stronger? Now, page 157. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, your present awareness, freed from its physical support, is being blown by the coursing vital energy of past actions. Choicelessly, riding the horse of breath, it drifts directionless, like a feather on the wind. To all those who are crying, you will call out, I am here, do not cry. But they will not hear you. Yet again, you will realize I am dead and experience a very profound despair. Do not be absorbed by this suffering. Continuously, there will be grayness, like autumn twilight, with neither day nor night. The intermediate states between death and birth will last for 1 week, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, or 6, or 7 weeks, up to 49 days in all. It is said that suffering in the intermediate state of rebirth, will last, generally speaking, for 21 days. However, since the duration of this state is based on past actions, a specific number of days is not certain. So there's lots of opinion about this. There's lots of different practices that say different time things. There's different masters who say different things, and where it all comes from, I don't know. You don't know. They may not know. It becomes demonstrative. They're trying to tell a story and they weave a story, or they're trying to recollect what happened to them in a certain experience, and then they want to share it with other beings and so on, like that. And it's all good. It's all valid if we look at it as this is an experience that can help guide me to have my own experience with it. But the numbers, the durations, all these things are all relative. It's not like they're going up to this big rock and saying, abracadabra, open sesame, and the rock opens up and there's a cave revealed or something like that. It's not some kind of a mythological fairy tale, something like that. It's something that you develop on your own. The right combination of things, when the causes and conditions are right, all of a sudden you begin to have this transcendent experience and so on. And it's your experience. It's a valid experience. And it can change over time. It can become, you can find that what seemed to be true for this experience now just became, you recognize it as a delusion. Or you may find that it has a great deal of validity to it, and we can see it in these different practices and prayers and so on. And it's worth, in that case, to use it for as useful as it becomes. When it stops being useful, let it go. So now at the bottom of page 157. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje. At this time, the fierce, turbulent, utterly unbearable hurricane of past actions will be swirling behind you, driving you on. Do not be afraid. This is your own bewildered perception. Before you, there will be a terrifying, dense, and unfathomable darkness, echoing with cries of strike and kill. Do not be afraid. So, this fear and threatening is your karma, is stuff that you are holding on to. This is the stuff, if you remember in the 12 links of interdependent origination, in the 12th link, there's the old man who's walking along and he's got a sack on his back. And the sack on his back is holding all the karma. It's the alaya consciousness, the storehouse consciousness. He's holding on to all those seeds. Instead, we should be taking those seeds out. We should be opening that bag and taking things out as often as we can. Lighten that bag, lighten our load, lighten our karma. We do that through forgiveness. We do that through understanding. We do that from being able to see the empty nature of our life, of all these things and so on that we hold on to. So we're actually cleansing ourselves by doing this, by doing that. But these things are saying to us, strike, kill. They are trying to keep us ensnared in their power. The karma is blowing us, is the wind that is blowing us like a leaf in the wind, as it just said. And the ego is fine with that. The ego will move with that. So now the next paragraph says, moreover, in the case of very negative beings, a swarm of carnivorous ogres will arise, executors of the unfailing laws of cause and effect. brandishing an array of weapons and screaming out aggressively, "Strike and kill." You will imagine that you are being pursued by terrifying wild animals. You will imagine that you are being pursued by hordes of people and that you are struggling through snow, through rain, through blizzards, and through darkness. There will be the sound of mountains crumbling, of lakes flooding, of fires spreading, and the roar of fierce winds springing up. Terrified, you will try to flee wherever you can, but your path ahead will suddenly be cut off by three precipices: one white, one red, and one black. All three awesomely frightening. You will feel as though you're on the verge of falling. Well, this is classic, in our dreams, the idea of falling and so on, being confronted with great obstacles and so on. So this is where we can see that our the Bardo of dreams, becomes a mechanism in which to be able to experience these things that are happening here in the Bardo of becoming, but we haven't made a connection and saying, oh, I'm looking at these things. But meanwhile, many of the symbolic things that happen in our dreams are indeed referencing these different levels, these different bardos. So the next page says, "O child of Buddha nature, Riki Bu, Kunchok Pema Dorje." These are not truly precipices. They are aversion, attachment, and delusion, respectively. So the white aversion of the white aversion of the white aversion, the red attachment, and the black delusion. Just think about those colors and what those colors might mean to you in regard to these afflictions, these emotions: white aversion, red attachment, and black delusion. Know now that this is the intermediate state of rebirth, and call to the meditational deity Mahakarunika by name and pray, "O Lord Mahakarunika, spiritual teacher and precious jewel, save me, Kunchok Pema Dorje, from falling into the lower existences." Pray with deep commitment in this way. Do not forget. So this is the practical reliance on the deity yoga. The recollection, when things get scary, who do we turn to? What do we do? We say, oh, I'm going to fight my way through this, or do we say, I'm going to adopt. If I'm not already, I'm going to adopt. I'm going to use the power of the meditation that I learned from Shenrezig, from Medicine Buddha, from Green Tara, from White Tara, from Vajrakalaya, from whatever deity is your meditational deity. I'm going to use that spiritual power to see me through this illusion of terror, to dispel this terror, to neutralize this terror, whatever it is, this fear, this confusion. I'm going to embody that deity in order to render this threat to myself as harmless. And then I disappear as an ordinary human being and I become the deity, just a manifestation of energy. So now in the middle of 159, it says, at this stage, in the case of those individuals who have gathered the accumulations of merit and pristine cognition and have sincerely practiced the teachings, one will be welcomed by visions of abundant riches and one will experience manifold blissful and happy states. So this is where it works. That's what we wanted to do. That whatever that terror was, whatever that fear was, gets dispelled, and now peace is restored. The next sentence it says, in the case of those individuals who are indifferent or deluded, who have been neither virtuous nor not, or excuse me, who have been neither virtuous nor negative, one will experience neither pleasure nor pain, but only an apathetic delusion. Whichever of these, virtuous or negative, one will experience pleasure or pain. Whichever of these happens, O child of Buddha nature, whatever objects of desire or blissful or happy states appear before you, do not be attached to them. Do not cling to them. Be free from attachment and clinging, and mentally offer these experiences to your spiritual teacher and to the three precious jewels, particularly if the visions are of indifference, devoid of happiness or pain. Abide in the experience of the Great Seal, where awareness is naturally present without meditation and without distraction. This is very important. So, if during this whole process of our developing our meditative skills has not taught you about letting go and letting go of even the the blissful qualities as well as the negative qualities, because the blissful qualities will lock you up just as quickly as the non-virtuous will lock you up. We need to let go of both of these emotions. This is all emotions that are coming back to us, that are still lingering. We're still subject to them in this Bardo state. So we have to rely on the practices that we've been developing and so on. If you're hearing this for the first time, say you never heard this and you've never even been introduced to Buddhism at all, but you've got a Buddhist friend who is guiding you through your death. You've just died, and this is kind of gonna, figuratively go in one ear and out the other. It's not going to mean anything to you. When we're reciting this for someone who has not had the experience of the Bardo teachings and so on, it's not going to make any sense to them. They're not even going to recognize it. By this time, they're going to be born again in some form, and we'll get to what those possibilities are. But what's incumbent upon us is to study these spiritual practices and symbology now while we can, and to make it stronger and stronger and stronger through the repetition of doing these things over and over and over again. And in particular, what we do for other people, because that's the whole point of the bodhisattva, is that you are teaching other beings, you are showing other beings, and you are purifying those inconsistencies in your own intellect, in your own heart, those things that maybe you don't have quite right, but through the mill of grinding these things out with other people and everything, you're purifying yourself too. So it's all part of the process. So the Mahamudra is what's being expressed here, the Great Seal, where awareness is naturally present without meditation and without distraction. This is very important. So working towards the Mahamudra, the fivefold path of Mahamudra, as we discuss it, as we learn it in the Kagyu tradition. In the Nyingma tradition, they talk about the Dzogchen, the great perfection, which is just as valid and just as powerful as the Mahamudra. So to learn how to practice in this Mahamudra, in this great seal, in this great perfection, the Dzogchen, is what we do now. And out of that, we develop accumulation, we develop merit, and so on like that. But we can't totally rely on the merit to pull us through all the time. We have to have the technique of being able to use the accumulations that we use. And so the meditational deity helps us to do that because they are a huge symbol of what all that means. It's a mnemonic. It's a mnemonic. Just by seeing the deity, just by thinking the deity, just by reciting the deity's name, all of a sudden, all the different characteristics coalesce right inside of you, and everything comes out. Everything is there. Without that experience, you become the leaf in the wind. In the middle of page 160. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchak Pema Dorje. At this time, you will try to find shelter from the hurricane of past actions, below bridges, in mansions, in temples or grass huts, or beside stupas and so forth. But this shelter will be momentary. It will not last. Your awareness now separated from your body will not rest, and you will feel reckless, angry, and afraid. Your consciousness will be faltering, superficial, and nebulous. Again, you will realize, alas, I am dead. What should I do now? Reflecting on this, your consciousness will grow sad. Your heart will be chilled, and you will feel intense and boundless misery. Your mind is being compelled to move on without settling in one place. Do not indulge in all kinds of memories. Let your awareness rest in an undistracted state, like space. So, this shelter that we're seeking here in this situation is ego identification with a certain lifestyle, you know, whatever available to us. If we're not very well developed, we may go under a bridge. We may go into a door, and they talk about, these, these ghosts and things like that are inhabited by these beings who, were in this state and couldn't deal with what was happening, and they wanted to go into the first solid thing that they could penetrate. And so maybe it was some kind of an inanimate object or something like that. Whether that's really true or just myth, it's just easy to think about that. But the, the, the thing here for us is to let your awareness rest in an undistracted state like space. To not have the ego, not be driven by the ego. We give the ego a job. Next page, 161. The time will come when you will realize that you have no food except that which has been dedicated to you. As for companionship here, similarly, there will be no certainty. These are both indications that the mental body is wandering in the intermediate state of rebirth. Your present feelings of happiness and sorrow are now driven by your past actions. Once again, seeing your homeland, circle of friends, relatives, and even your own corpse, you will realize I am dead. What should I do now? You will feel deeply saddened by your existence in a mental body and wish, oh, that I might obtain a physical body. So this is happening in the terms of the 49 days. This is happening around the 42nd day, just to put an arbitrary kind of a number to it. So we will have had gone through all the other opportunities to free ourselves in the Bardo of reality and so on, but now we've fallen into this Bardo of becoming and so on. What is important here, what we are doing for people who have passed, what we are developing ourselves now is a language, is an understanding of communication that transcends our intellectual language, our English, our Spanish, our Vietnamese, our Tibetan, whatever language we use, it's going past that and it becomes the language of the light. This is why all these deities from the Bardo Thodol, or excuse me, from the Bardo of reality, all have light associations. blue light, red light, green light, yellow light, white light, or clear light. All these have these light associations because now this body that is going through all these opportunities, changes, and so on, is responding to light. And this is where we as reciters of this, we as meditators, we as mantrayana beings who are reciting mantra are converting, if we will, allowing those words to become light for ourselves and for the benefit of all those beings that we are all connected with, that are part of this vibration that goes through us. So the more that we're able to concentrate that light, if someone passes that we're all friends with and we all come together either in our homes wherever we are, or we come together in a dharma center and we start doing prayers and we start reciting these Om Mani Padme Hum Shri, and we're visualizing those five lights, six lights, then our light is all coming together, our energy is coalescing, and becomes stronger for that being who's in this bardo to be able to recognize that light, perceiving that light. Are they seeing it with their eyes? No, but they're recognizing, they're feeling that love, they're recognizing that love, they're feeling that compassion, that bodhicitta. You know, can we be certain of that? Well, as certain as I am of my spirituality. And it's there for all of us to do. Here is the offering. This is the gift. If you wish to accept it, if you take this gift and you practice it and it doesn't work for you, then we can talk about that. But on the other hand, if you practice it and you see it working, you get that clear faith that yes, this does indeed work, then that's completely transformative. So now the next paragraph on page 161 says, consequently, you will experience roaming here and there in search of a body. You might even attempt many times to re-enter your own body, but a long time has already elapsed in the previous intermediate state of reality. In winter, your body will have frozen. In summer, it will have decayed. Alternatively, your relatives will have cremated it, buried it in a grave, or offered it to the birds and wild animals. Not finding a way back, you will feel utterly distressed, and you will certainly feel yourself trying to squeeze into the crevices between stones and rocks. Torments such as these will enfold you, this being the intermediate state of rebirth. So long as you search for a body, you will experience nothing but suffering. Therefore, give up all your clinging to a body and rest in a state of non-activity undistractedly. So it's going back to your meditative state, non-activity. Rest in a state undistractedly. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, listen to me. It is due to your own past actions that you are now suffering in this way. No one else is responsible. This is solely the result of your own past actions. Pray ardently now to the three precious jewels. They will protect you. If you do not pray intensely now, especially if you do not know, if you do not now, do not know how. That's what it should be. If you do not pray intensely now, especially if you do not know how to meditate on the Great Seal, or if you cannot meditate on a meditational deity, the innate good conscience within you will now gather together all your virtuous actions, counting them out on white pebbles, and the innate bad conscience within you will gather together all your non-virtuous actions, counting them out with white pebbles. At this moment, your you will tremble with extreme fear, awe, and terror. You will tell lies, saying, I have not committed non virtuous actions. But at this, Yama will say, I shall consult the mirror of past actions. So you may have heard of this story before about, the white pebbles and the black pebbles, your good virtue and your bad virtue, and the arbiter of which is stronger, which are you a good person, are you a bad person, are you a mixture of these stones, of these virtues and non-virtues. And that, is the story. And so for us to be able to anticipate and think about that now is very good, and to be able to develop a forgiveness for ourselves, for the black pebbles, and for us to be able to let go of the consequences of the black pebbles, and the same with the white pebbles, to think of the virtues that we have accumulated and whether or not they lead us to a pridefulness, and are we and we can be trapped in that, and that we can think that we're doing good for ourselves, but actually we're just linking ourselves up to another lifetime of what might be, attached to our pleasures, and not being able to receive the Dharma because we're so locked up with those pleasures. So there's in the black hat dance, you've seen and there's a part there where they consult the ledger, which is written down the accumulation of the white pebbles and the black pebbles. So we practice the non-activity we talked about just a little bit ago, but in this situation now we're confronted with, the vicissitudes of our lives, with these black pebbles and white pebbles and so on. We realize that. And now going forward, we can't change the past. All that we can do is change now. And so now the practice of inactivity, unnecessary activity, becomes the paradigm, becomes the mental shift that we bring into our lives now, that we activate in our lives. What are we doing that we don't need to be doing? Letting things go. So we do that in the Bardo of living. Your karmic results have driven you to this far. So now we can change the dynamic of the white pebbles and the black pebbles. We can lighten the load. We can be taking out the karmic seeds out of the bag. Now, however much time we have, to live again in this life, whether it's 5 minutes or 5 years or 50 years. So now I'm on the page of 163 at the top, the paragraph. It begins, in the mirror of past actions, all of your virtues and non-virtues will be reflected vividly and precisely. Your attempts at deceit will be of no use. Tying a rope around your neck, Yama will drag you forward. He will sever your head at the neck, extract your heart, pull out your entrails, lick your brains, drink your blood, eat your flesh, and suck your bones. Despite this, you will not die. Even as your body is repeatedly cut into pieces, it will continuously be revived. Experiencing being cut into pieces in this way, time after time, will cause enormous suffering. From the moment of the counting of the pebbles begin, do not be afraid. Do not be terrified. Do not lie. Do not be afraid of Yama. The body which you now have is a mental body. Therefore, even though you experience being slain and cut into pieces, you cannot die. Recognize now that in reality, you need have no fear because in truth, your body is a natural form of emptiness. The acolytes of Yama are also in reality natural forms of emptiness. These are your own bewildered perceptions. Your body, formed of mental propensities, is a natural form of emptiness. Emptiness cannot harm emptiness. Signlessness cannot harm signlessness. Outside and distinct from your own bewildering perceptions, Yama, gods, malevolent forces, the bull-headed Raksa, and so on, do not substantially exist. Recognize this. Recognize now that this is the intermediate state. Place your mind in the meditative stability of the Great Seal, the Mahamudra. So now we're going through a process of taking responsibility. Yama Dhamaraja is ourself and is a wrathful form of the Buddha, who is a fierce form. And the imagery, cutting off the head and licking the bones and doing all this, is, is a cultural technique to scare people into following this kind of path of being able to take responsibility for themselves. So there is this mythology or whatever woven into this. There is this story woven into this. These wrathful deities with all these characteristics with animal heads and everything that we went through talking about the wrathful, fierce deities and the Bardo of reality was scare techniques to tell these, illiterate people, hey, you need to wake up. You need to take responsibility for yourself. You need to clean up your life and so on. So it can be very effective. And even for people with high intelligence and high ability and so on, it's frightening until you really learn and recognize what the purpose of this is, how this operates and so on. So we go through the different practices of Jud and of cutting our body up and so on to be able to practice giving up our body, letting go of our body. Our body's our most prized possession, but it's temporary and subject to injury and sickness and death at any moment. So these techniques are wisdom techniques to help us to be able to do that. The wisdom manifests as compassion, the method, the skillful means in which we do this. So our practices are teaching us how to do this, so that when we come into this state of fearfulness, that we're prepared for it. So these messengers, the acolytes are like messengers. They're demonic messengers, mind projections of the individual, of the person going through this process, to to deal with this now on the cushion, so that we're not subject to this fear and terror in the Bardo state, which will then influence us as to how we're going to be ultimately born. So it says, the last sentence in this paragraph says, place your mind in the meditative stability of the Great Seal, the Mahamudra. So now the next paragraph says, if you do not know how to meditate directly Examine the essence of that which is producing your fear and terror. This essence is a stark emptiness, completely without inherent existence in any respect whatsoever. This stark emptiness is the Buddha body of reality. Yet this emptiness is not a vacuous or nihilistic emptiness. This essential nature of this emptiness is an awesome, direct, and radiant awareness, which is the enlightened intention of the Buddha body of perfect resource. Indeed, emptiness and radiance are not separate. The essential nature of emptiness is radiance, and the essential nature of radiance is emptiness. This indivisible, naked, unclouded, and exposed awareness, present as it is right now, is a natural, uncontrived state, is the Buddha body of essentiality. Furthermore, the natural expressive power of this Buddha body of essentiality is the compassionate Buddha body of emanation, which arises everywhere without obstruction. So this is another way of saying the Buddha body of the Swabhavika Kaya, the co-emergent, all this coming together in the embodiment of the Buddha body of emanation, of the human body, the human body. So what we've been talking about, the Buddha body of perfect resource, is the Sambhogagaya, is all the mental, is all the meditational deities and so on. But the Buddha body of emanation now is the embodiment of that energy that that resource all represents. And now you're putting it all to work. You're making it all happen. So the essentiality is the non-dual unity of the three kayas, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogagaya Kaya, and the Nirmanakaya. This is the nature body. The nature body is another way of saying the emanation body, the nature body. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Mark Kunchok Pema Dorje, to me now, and do not be distracted. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, listen to me now, and do not be distracted. By merely recognizing the essential nature of your experience in the above way, you will attain perfect Buddhahood, endowed with these four Buddha bodies. Do not be distracted. The division between Buddhas and sentient beings is determined by this recognition. If you are distracted at this critical moment, the opportunity to escape from the swamp of suffering will be lost. It is said of this very moment. In an instant, penetrating analysis is made. In an instant, perfect Buddhahood is attained. Page 166. Until yesterday, because you were distracted, even though so many aspects of the intermediate states have arisen, you did not attain recognition. Up to this time, you have experienced so much fear and terror. Now, if you continue to be distracted, the lifeline of compassion suspended to you will be cut off, and you will move on to a place where there is no immediate prospect of liberation. So be careful. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje, if you do not now know how to meditate, you should call to mind the Buddha, the sacred teachings, the sublime assembly of monks and nuns, and the meditational deity Mahakarunika, and pray to them. Meditate on all the fearful and terrifying appearances as being forms of Mahakarunika, or your meditational deity. Remember your spiritual teacher and remember the name which you received during empowerment ceremonies in the human world. Say this name, Rikibu, Rikibu, O child of Buddha nature. Rikibu, O child of Buddha nature. O child of Buddha nature. Rikibu. Say this name to Yama Dhamaraja, and do not be afraid of him. Know now that even if you were to plunge down over the precipices, you will not be harmed. So abandon your fear and terror. So there's multiple opportunities to recognize oneself and to remember, to recollect the deity, to recollect yourself as the embodiment of the deity, to return to the mandala of the Bardo of reality. There's opportunity here to be able to do that. So we give up attachment and anger, delusion, even if you were born in a womb. We catapult the projectorist by your own present perceptions, developed in everyday practices. Do not be attached to family and ceremonies. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje. Your present perceptions can, like a catapult, in an instant, cast you in the most awesome states, either blissful or full of suffering. Therefore, now it is critical that your perceptions are not colored by either attachment or aversion. It may be that you are about to take birth in the higher realms, yet at the same time, when the perceptions of the higher realms occur, your living relatives, now left behind, are sacrificing and offering many animals on your behalf, dedicating this activity to you, the deceased. Corrupted perceptions will thus arise, and consequently, an intense aversion will well up within you, and this will form a connecting link to a birth in the hell realms. Therefore, whatever activities occur in the place that you have left behind, meditate on loving kindness and ensure that aversion does not arise. So, this is another technique to frighten beings in the Bardo of living to take up these teachings. Alternatively, you might you alternatively your mind may grow attached to your wealth and possessions, now left behind, or else knowing that your wealth and possessions are being enjoyed and owned by others, you may become attached to those worldly goods and also hateful towards those left behind who are using your possessions. As a result of this, a connecting link will certainly be formed to a birth among the hell beings or amongst the anguished spirits, even though you may have been at the point of attaining birth in one of the higher realms. However attached you may be to the wealth now left behind, you may not have the ability to enjoy it. Since it is absolutely of no use to you, abandon your attachment and yearning. For the wealth you left behind, let it go, be decisive, regardless of who is enjoying your wealth. Do not be possessed, let it go. Cultivate devotion and imagine that you are being offering these worldly possessions to your spiritual teacher and to the three precious jewels. Rest in a state free of attachment and free from clinging. So if we're developing generosity now, if we're developing these skills in our meditation, if we are learning how to let go and how to purify ourselves and to allow ourselves to remain in the post-meditative state, this carries through into the Bardo of becoming. If we have that bag of karma on our back that is heavier than what we have taken out, that is going to have weight. That is going to move us in the direction of a birth that we may not care for. But if we can develop these techniques of spirituality, of lightening our load, of being able to dispel, neutralize these karmic seeds and so on, then we will be undisturbed in being able to maintain, sustain, stabilize our spirituality in the midst of all this, so that if we are to be reborn, it will be as a spiritual being that will have more power than the power of all this materialism and all these afflictive emotions and so on that otherwise may be controlling our movement. You know, if we can stabilize to the point that we can become completely inactive in this bardo of becoming, and we can reverse ourselves and go back into the bardo of reality, it is possible. So it takes great ability to be able to do that. So this is what we are developing. We can recognize this over and over again. You know, we have many opportunities to reverse this negative or this flowing movement into being reborn as an ordinary human being. As we are sitting on the cushion, you know, and as we are in a meditative state, what is it that brings us out of our meditative state? What kind of thought is it? You know, is it a thought of something that rises up, something I did 20 years ago, or something that I might do, I've been thinking about doing tomorrow, or something like that? Is it something negative like that? And if I allow myself to come out of the meditation with that kind of thought, then for whatever time I have to, I'm 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 haunted by that being pulled away. I lost my meditation. Maybe there's feelings of fear or guilt or something like that. But if, on the other hand, that thought comes to me of something that I did 20 years ago or something I got to do tomorrow that is distasteful, but I can let that go and I can go back into my meditation. I have the skill to be able to return to the meditation in that session. Then, whatever those thoughts were gone, are gone, they're let go. So that's the kind of skill that we're trying to develop for the bardo. Rest in a state free from attachment and free from clinging. The last paragraph in page 168 says, once again, even when the Kankani Dharani incantation of the dead is being recited for you in the purification of the lower realms, the Sarva Durgati Parasarana Tantra is being recited on your behalf. You may perceive with your present subtle cognitive ability that these rites are being performed impurely and distractedly. So one of these is a Hindu prayer, and the other one is a Buddhist prayer. So when these are being done for you, you may perceive them as being done wrong. So it's saying, you know, you got to let go of that. You know, whatever disturbs us, you know, and it's going through these permutations of all the things that might disturb us. So it's helping us to see that. Um, so let me see here. So as a result, you may have no confidence in them, of them reciting these prayers for you and so on, that you recognize this. As a result, you may have no confidence in them. You may form a bad opinion of them, and you may become fearfully and horribly aware of their negative past actions and so forth, as well as their impure practice of the sacred teachings and the rituals. Feeling this, you will experience the utmost sadness and think, alas, they have betrayed me. They have truly betrayed me. As a consequence of your profound disenchantment, instead of maintaining purity of perception and feelings of respect, negative opinions and loss of confidence will arise in you. Have you ever been in a situation where you've been going to the Dharma Center, you've got a teacher, and you've been with that teacher for quite some time, and you have a particular way of doing the practices each week, each month, however you go? It's always a precise way. But then for some reason, that teacher is gone, and another teacher comes in and then starts doing things in a completely different way. Maybe the different order, the different prayers, maybe they're reciting it a different way. The melody is different. There's no melody. They're eliminating things. They're changing words. And, it's like, wow, what's going on? I feel like I'm being stabbed, but this guy doesn't know what he's doing. And he's going to pull me down with it. And it's causing me all this strife and everything. Let it go, you know? And, you got to look at it from the heart essence of what the motivation is. If it's someone who is sitting and doing these prayers and doing these things and is thinking about doing non-virtuous things, unwholesome things, and corrupting, there's no energy that's coming toward you. Or if it is, maybe it's negative energy. We have to let go of it. We have to, whenever something arises, emotion in ourselves, whatever it is, it's our responsibility to let go of it. We can't control that other person, but we can control the way in which it comes to us. And so ultimately, letting go of all these things is the key to the freedom that we're all seeking. So back to this paragraph, it says, thus these perceptions and feelings will form a connection link that will certainly propel you to the lower existences. And in this way, your subtle cognitive ability and the rituals recited in your behalf will not have been of benefit, but rather of great harm. However, impure may be the practice of the sacred teachings by your friends now left behind. You must maintain respect and purity of perception from the depths of your heart. Think to yourself, my own perception is so polluted. How could the speech of the Buddhas be impure? These impure perspectives have arisen as a consequence of my own impure perception, and will appear to me just as the flaws on my face will be reflected in a mirror. As for these individuals performing the rituals, in reality, their bodies are the sublime community of monks and nuns. Their speech is the genuine sacred teaching, and their minds are the essence of the Buddhas. Therefore, I take refuge in them. Thinking thus, whatever activities occur in the place that you have left behind, they will certainly be beneficial to you. It is extremely important to maintain this purity of perception. Do not forget this. So even if they're doing it what seems to be wrong to you, for you, just think in terms of they have made a commitment to the Dharma, and they are the embodiment of that commitment, and look at that as a wholesome commitment, and that will free you from their their incorrectness or whatever it might be and coming to harm you. That's a technique of letting go, protecting yourself, letting go of what is happening to them, and causing no ill will towards them to come back to them. Now the next paragraph on page 170. Even if you are to be born into the lower realms, yet you do maintain purity of perception, and you perceive the relatives that you have left behind practicing the virtuous teachings, unstained by negativity, and you see your spiritual teachers and masters purely practicing the rituals with virtuous body, speech, and mind, you will feel great joy. Simply through this experience of great joy, even though you are about to fall into lower existences, this joy will form a connecting link, which will certainly turn you back towards the higher realms. Since there is such manifold benefit, do not now lapse into impure perception. It is extremely important to maintain purity of perception and to be unbiasedly devoted, so be careful. All things are samantabhadra. All things are of primordial nature. So the purity of the prayers, even if they're said wrong in the wrong order, if they're said with different melody, the purity of the prayers themselves are powerful. So at this point, anybody got any comments or questions? All right, well, then there's one more thing, just another 2 pages. So that was something that we recite. What I just recited, we would recite for the person who we were reciting this for 4 or 5 days, whatever was designated. 4 or 5 days, we would continue. We would recite that, and to re-support them over and over again for their voyage through this bardo of becoming. This was the elucidation, what it is, what to expect, how to behave, and so on. So now we recite this next prayer, which we recite every day during the whole time of the bardo of becoming. So I'll recite that now. It's on page 171. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje. In short, since your awareness during this intermediate state lacks any material support, it is light and volatile, and therefore, whatever virtuous or non virtuous perceptions arise, these are very powerful. Do not be absorbed by non virtuous thoughts. Call to mind the virtuous practices of your past. Even if you did not engage in virtuous practices during your life, maintain purity of perception and deep devotion. Pray to your meditational deity or to Mahakarunika, and with a powerful longing, repeat the following aspirational prayer. Now, when I roam alone, separated from my loved ones, and myriad images of emptiness arise, naturally manifesting, may the Buddhas quickly release the power of their compassion, and may the fear of the awesome and terrifying intermediate state be annulled. When I experience suffering as the result of negative past actions, may the meditational deity, Mahakarunika, dispel all such misery. And as the natural sound of reality reverberates like 1,000 peals of thunder, may all sounds be transformed into the resonance of the 6 syllables, Om Mani Padme Hum. When I am driven on by past actions, unable to find a refuge, may the great compassionate one, Mahakarunika, protect me. And as I experience the suffering of habitual tendencies and past actions, may the meditative stabilities of inner radiance and bliss naturally arise. Say this aspirational prayer with ardent longing. It will certainly lead you onto the path. Be absolutely certain that this aspirational prayer will not deceive you. This is most important. And then we would recite Om Mani Padme Hum Shri as many times as possible, visualizing the lights from each of the syllables going to the realms, the God realm, the demigod realm, the human realm, the animal realm, the hungry ghost realm, and the hell realm beings, purifying all beings wherever they are in any of those realms. For the person who is the object of your recitation, but to all these beings and so on. So the melody, the liberation mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. Om Mani Shri. Om Mani Padme Hum 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 Shri. So this is the melody of Gotcha Rinpoche that he has taught us. Very powerful, and to do it with great feeling, great thinking, great transference of energy from your heart going out to the object of your recitation. Om Mani Padme Hum Shri is the mantra of Mahakarunika, Avalokiteshvara, Shenreze. At any given time of the day, there's thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people who are reciting this mantra. And to tune in with that power, to connect with that power, and so on, and aim it at at your object of the practice is very, very powerful. And with it comes cleansing, because from within you, whatever impurities are there are being purged, are coming out, are being purified by this recitation, by this vibration, by these lights, and so on. So that's the elucidation of the Bardo of becoming. So any thoughts? Anybody like to make a comment? Yes,
Um,
Alex.
George. Yeah, just to uh, uh, clarify further, when uh, when in this teaching we are called to pray to meditational deity of our choice or habit or connection, um, either do they mean the prayer that you were just um, that you just read, or do they mean it's that practice that we do of visualization and mantra recitation that we often that we engage when we practice this
Well, we
deity?
would go back to page 171. This particular prayer is a prayer that we recite each day. Each one of these sections has a prayer that is recited each day, which is kind of like a consolidation of what that section was. So for
Mm-hmm.
this Bardo of becoming, this is the consolidation for it. So this prayer is recited from day number 38. So it will begin on day number 38 through day 49. So it's a consolidation. It's a visualization, and it's repeated 3 times. You can repeat it more times, but it's always, trying to, instill the vitality of the connection.
Mm-hmm. So each day that prayer will be changing depending on like what we're going through.
Each section, each
Each sec-
section. So there's 3 major sections.
Mhm.
There's 3 sections. So there's the section of the Bardo of reality, the Bardo of death, the Bardo of reality, and then the Bardo of becoming. These 3 sections. But the Om Mani Padme Hum, the liberation mantra, is the thing that is woven through all of this.
Mhm.
That at every opportunity, to recite Om Mani Padme Hum with heartfelt connection, for a mile around, 2 mile rounds, 3 mile around, 10 mile rounds, whatever you can. That's what really is the connection point. That is the vibration that we're tuning into. Does that make sense? I mean, what do you think of that?
Well, that it it brings stability to the mind in
Exactly.
in those kind of like very emotional and perturbative.
And when we
Uh,
say the mind in this case, we're talking about the intellectual mind and the spiritual mind coming together because they both come together and becoming the mind when we say the mind. You know, but we can say the heart mind or the big mind. We can say
mm,
the little mind. The little mind blocks up the heart mind. But when you can free the obscurations of the little mind, now, the intellect now recognizes what it's doing as spiritual mind, recognizes the spirituality. That's the co-emergence of this all coming together.
yes.
Bernie, I'm always curious what you have to say.
Okay. Well, it's been a nice listening to you go through the text, and of course, it reminds me. It's been a long time since I've studied the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and so it's some of this is familiar with me to me, but it's been a long time, and it's good to hear all about it again. I mean, the general principle, of course, is not to be attached to anything or not to be afraid of anything, but just to see it as illusion and just to detach from it. I mean, that's not just good principles for the bardo, I mean, the bardo of the intermediate state, but it's also a good principle for our everyday life right today. We should not be attached to the various problems that come up in our lives. We make too much of things. I especially worry too much or have too much emotional attachment to things, and none of it's necessary. And just hearing this about the Bardo state is also a reminder not to let that happen during our everyday life. So that's all I have to say, really.
Well, thank you. French, I'd like to ask you, what do you think about this? Your microphone is still muted. There you are.
Like Bernie, I'm just trying to absorb. Uh, it's a lot of different images, a lot of different um, information. Um,
I got to ask the loaded question because three of us here, you know, are closer to a natural death than we've ever been. And may it be a long, long, long time before it comes, and may we be totally prepared for it. But does this motivate you in any way to prepare more earnestly for our soon to come, too soon to come passing?
are you asking me?
Sure.
I have realize that my motivation to be more diligent than I have been in my life is insufficient. So instead, I practice being grateful for all the kindnesses that I have received in my life. And fortunately, all the people I've ever known and do know seem to be spiritual beings, kind people, wonderful people. And I just try to be present as much as I can. Um, so these practices are interesting to me, and I'm certainly aware of Jung's point of view about things. I'm aware of the point of view that all of these are projections of the mind in the Bardo, just as every experience we have every moment, every day is a projection. They're all mental creations. Um, so my practice is to pay attention, release self-criticism, um, which is the source of all other criticism, and to do my best to enjoy the teaching and to enjoy what I can learn, whatever I can absorb. And I just try to accept that.
Spoken like a real wise person. That's very good. Thank you. Thank you. And Larry,
Thank you.
I didn't want to. I'd like to hear if you have any comments, anything you'd like to say.
I feel like Bernie and French. I'm just trying to absorb as much of it as possible. It's interesting because I've heard various times I've heard lamas make reference to various aspects of it, but this is the first time I've ever seen it laid out step by step like this. Um, as part of um, how it's going to inspire me, I don't know. I'll see. But yeah, I think about death all the time. Um, my life hasn't been a particularly happy one, so I don't think that I'll be particularly upset when the time comes. But you never know.
Well, may we all be together in the light of the Bardo of reality, and in whichever way we can, you know. And I look at it as Bardo. I look at it as Buddha Maitreya. You know, if we all can unite as because we all have work to do. I think that, and if we can do our work as Buddha Maitreya, and our energy coalesces together with many other millions of people, that would be a wonderful thing. That would be, and that's what it needs.
And I can't help but wonder. There are times when I think, well, is all this stuff I'm doing, is that going to do me any good when I hit the Bardo?
Of
Um,
course.
I mean, there's of course, obviously, I must believe it or I wouldn't keep doing it. But still, there's that doubt in my mind.
It ain't going to do you no harm. If it doesn't do you any good, at least you know it's not going to do you any harm.
Right.
I've heard lamas say that before. Because we don't know, right? When we get down to it, you know, we don't know. We have faith, but all right. Well, it's past 9 o'clock, so let me just say a quick dedication because I know we like to close by 9. By the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, May I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Drikung Ratna Shri and all the other great masters who are omniscient, lords of the Dharma, masters of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Om, Ah, Hong. Om, Ah, Hong. Om, Ah, Hong. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate you being here and talking and sharing in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. It's
Right.
thank you for your energy and your voice. It's a long reading, and yeah, although I don't feel like I'm near the transition time. I do think about my father who is getting really close there, and
Please wait.
If if I have chance to read this to him when he is near his transition, that would be my greatest honor and joy in a way, because
Certainly.
that will help him guide on a good way forward.
All right. We're going to get you a copy of this too.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.